Welcome back to the show. I'm your host, Ivan Palomino, and today we are diving into one of the most significant structural challenges in the modern workplace. It involves everybody, including me, the parenthood penalty. For decades, the corporate ladder was designed for a 1950s reality that simply no longer exists. Yet many organizations are still trying to fit the 21st century talent into mid-century molds, leading to burnout, attrition, and a massive loss of leadership potential. Today's episode is titled Beyond the Parenthood Penalty: How HR Can Re-Engineer the Modern Career. We aren't just talking about being nice to parents or offering basic flex time. We are talking about a fundamental redesign of how we view productivity, leadership, and psychological safety. Joining me to lead this conversation is Dr. Rosina McAlpine, sorry. She's an award-winning researcher, the CEO of Win-Win Parenting, and a specialist in the intersection of family dynamics and corporate performance. Rosina work Rosina's work challenges the idea that a career and a family are at odds. Instead, she proves that when we support the chief development officers of the home, we build more resilient, high performing organizations. Rosina, thank you for being here to help us re engineer the way we work. It's going to be amazing.
It's going to be amazing. I just met you and I already love you. So, yes, it's going to be great.
um, so let's get back. And I'm trying to put myself back in the days of my corporate life, a lot of traveling, a lot of meetings, people who couldn't respect the timings of work, or people who forgets from one country to the other that at 9 o'clock in the evening, you simply don't call somebody and you have to take care of your kids and you have to do homework. We have gone through all these challenging and very stressful moments. And you have worked extensively at this intersection of family in the workplace. And I wanted to know from a leadership perspective, what was the data point or moment that proved to you that traditional leave your personal life at the door model is actually a liability for corporate performance?
So, there wasn't one moment, but I can talk through all the important moments that brought me to where I am today. And the first one, of course, was what you were just talking about. I also was a working parent. And, when I am a working parent, but when I first became a mother, and at that time I was working in the business school at the University of Sydney as an associate professor. So I was managing large teams of employees, a lot, thousands of students over a period. And all of a sudden I had that responsibility, but I also had the responsibility of raising another human being. And as you said, that's not an easy challenge. So the first one was my own personal experience. Also, managing people who were working parents saying to me, I can't take that class because I've got to drop my child off at school, etc. That my child's sick today, I just can't come to work. That's it. There's no one to look after them. So I was starting to experience that myself. Also, my research area at the business school was work and family integration, gender equality. And what we were seeing back then, over a decade ago, was the corporate world leaders recognizing, hang on a sec, you bring your whole self to work. And it wasn't just in the space of parenting, but everybody, if there's things going on, elder care or what's going on in your life, um, that is going to impact family life. So family life's going to impact work life. And so there was starting to be these whole idea of well-being programs because we realized, okay, so that's now coming in. What I noticed at that time was that these well-being programs were not well suited to working parents. To say to a working parent, here's a gym membership. Well, how am I going to do that? Who's going to mind my child? Or, you need to switch off at this time or this self-care. And so that's when I became very interested in, well, what would it look like to have workplace programs that actually supported working parents to better navigate? The final data points are much more recent, and that is, and I know you're well aware of this yourself, we have multiple research studies, information, data collected from all sorts of walks of life. So from, insurance companies, from organizations, from Deloitte, from uh, researchers looking at work and family. And what we know now, this is the statistics, and it's very worrisome. When you look at your whole makeup of your employees, leaders know that working parents have the highest levels of stress, they have the highest levels of mental health challenges, highest levels of burnout, highest levels of employee turnover. So, now coming back to your question, these are very serious data points. And I think leadership is starting to wake up to this, and more organizations are saying we are losing great leaders, great employees, because we are not supporting them.
Hmm. This specific point, I clearly remember that I'm reading about the specific indexes of anxiety, depression, and several mental health challenges for women in leadership positions. That was quite high. I thought that post-COVID this was going to decrease, but no, 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 no. It became even worse. And as you said, we are losing a big potential. Now, let's. I put myself back in the day, 7 years ago, working in the corporate, and I remember that sometimes I used to create myself my own prison, my mental prison of saying. Uh, I need this job. I need to work as much as possible because I need to give to my family, even though my wife and we were both working. So I created myself this mental prison of saying, I need this in order to be good with my children. And that is obviously not true. Despite the fact that during my childhood, I went through the fact of not living with both of my parents, for me it wasn't I wasn't thinking right. I was thinking about what can I give when potentially my kids wanted more presence, more doing things together, and we tend to forget it in 2 minutes, thinking that the financial stability is what brings the family together. No, it's maybe the presence. Have you observed this same type of, or is it just me having these thoughts?
No, I think you bring up a really important point. This is not about an individual. This is not about every individual family. This is a systems issue. Now, I think you started in the podcast saying it's not 1950s where we've got mum at home, dad out at work. She's there, got her apron on and looking after the kids and cooking the dinner, and dad comes home, he's the breadwinner. Now, this is how society has been set up. It's been set up like that. We've got modern society now that has not recognized that, number one, we often now have two working parents because for many reasons. Sometimes because they have to, and other times because they choose to. Everyone wants to contribute to the world, right? What's their difference? What are they going to do? So now all of a sudden, we also have not a village. We used to have a village, remember, multi-generational. And in some places, thank goodness that still exists. But most people in the space now, when they say working parent, don't have a grandparent or a support system that they used to have. So what you're saying is that we're putting working parents in an impossible situation. And the way to say it is we're expecting working parents to work like they don't have a family. Like you said, be present and read the story, do the bath time, do the homework, but work, forget you don't have that. And then raise a family like you don't have deadlines, that you don't have meetings, that you don't have accountability. So it's a systems problem, and we have not resolved it, like you said. And now the data is showing that with burnout, with mental health challenges, at such high proportions that it's actually having a negative impact on society as a whole, not just the economy, but society. So I love that you brought that up. So I'll put both hands up and say I felt that pull too. Pay the mortgage and play in the sandpit with my son, right?
Mm,
It's impossible to be everywhere at once.
mm. You talk about systems, and systems are built with beliefs. And in corporations, there is this strong belief that uh, parent friendly means performance light. Like we are too easy, we are just hugging each other, we are hippies and all stuff. What is the biggest misconception managers have about the productivity of working parents, and how does that bias hurt the bottom line?
There's so many biases here. And as a working parent, one of the assumptions, of course, is, your focus is on your family, not on your career. You're only doing this to earn money, and have that kind of belief that working parents are not dedicated, that that it's a problem. They're not organized. They're not able to get the kids off and get to work. And it couldn't be further from the truth. You ask any working parent who's juggling work and family, they are focused and they are productive. They are getting the job done, right? Because they know I've got these hours to get my work done, and I've got these hours to make sure that my family is working appropriately. So, number one is not to underestimate commitment, not to underestimate capacity of a working parent. The second thing that happens if you have those, biases, is you assume that working parents aren't career focused, and that they miss out then on, there's a promotion or there's a new course that you could do, with the assumption that, well, you're too busy already. So you wouldn't want that promotion or you wouldn't want that course, right? And the third thing is, we absolutely know that it's a systems issue. So if we don't say, oh, actually, if we create the right environment, if we offer the right support, then our working parents will thrive at home and thrive at work. And that, of course, if there's well-being in the family, well-being in the individual, there's well-being in the workplace, productivity, loyalty. So those are the kind of things that we've got to put aside, that, they're not capable, that they're not, career focused, and that if you give them support, they are going to shine and be so loyal. So I think they're very important points. And I've been working in this industry now for over a decade. And, hopefully at some stage I'll get to give you some feedback. I'll give you one quote that I've got and this is very common kinds of quotes. My workplace offering this program makes me feel proud to work here. Seeing my employer invest in these sessions helps me to feel loyal and engaged at work. And that's what happens. It's not disinterest, it's engagement and loyalty, because you've given me every chance of being my best.
Mm. Sina, you made me think about a colleague that I had back in the days. She was super good, but she had but, and I'm using but because that's the perception that the corporate had about her. But because she had two kids, she couldn't attend these social gatherings that we have post work, where in fact companies expect us to network, to be together post work, and she could simply make it. And I have seen her with this frustration. One, because she was a woman in a world of 90% men. That's number one. Number two, incapacity to attend this social gathering post work. Let's have a drink at 6, 7 o'clock, and that is impossible because you have to put the kids in bed. And I saw the frustration and even the tears of this colleague, and who was, by the way, a friend from high school back in the days. um, so it's very tough to understand what it means for someone who is looking for options. What is a good company who is family friendly? Because it has to go beyond just the branding that they put on the website, the saying, oh, we have a kindergarten, we have flexibility. What is, according to you, these little things that we have to pay attention to understand if a company is really family friendly?
So over the last 10 years, I've been gathering that understanding, to be honest. When I first went in there, I had this big vision. I've got programs, I can do this, we can support working parents. But what I've seen through my experience, through the hundreds of thousands of working parents I've worked with and the hundreds of organizations, I put together just a couple of years ago a 5-point guide because I could see here are the 5 key elements. Now, there are many others, but to be truly family friendly, and anyone can access my guide from the website, it's free, so you've got it.
Good.
Anyone can access it. And so the first part of the guide is data. We cannot fix what we do not know is a problem. So we start with identifying the risks. Nowadays, thank goodness, organizations have caught up now and they're going, oh, psychosocial risks. Finally, right? We're there now. We've been saying this, working parents have been saying this forever, and now organizations are saying, oh, yeah, psychosocial risks. So the first thing we need to do is gather data, because when we have a problem, if you know a problem, you can manage a problem. So gathering data, and that's not hard, because if we look internationally, as I said, got data from Australia, New Zealand, Europe, America, Canada, Asia Pacific. We've got data everywhere on working families. So you can start there. The second thing is data in your organization. So we might have well-being surveys, but if they don't ask the right questions, you're not going to get the right answers. So they have to be focused to employees with caring responsibilities. Obviously, in a way that is systems focused, not personal focused. Like you said, we have drinks at 7 o'clock at night. That's a systems problem. That's not an individual problem, right? So would it be better to have afternoon tea together and have coffee and tea rather than at 7 o'clock at night? So we look at systems. So once we've got all the data, we're in a very good position to train our leaders. So data leadership training. I, hand over heart, have worked with so many passionate leaders, some of them who do not have children. So how can they understand without training, without understanding, the data and the experiences that working parents have? And even if you are a working parent, so I might not be going through a divorce. I might not have a child with additional needs. I might not have elder care as well as childcare. So we need to train leaders on all of the diversity of challenges. And of course, it's different when your newborn is not sleeping and you're not sleeping all night, or your 18-year-old has mental health challenges and you've got to deal with that, or your school-age child is doing school refusal. I'm not going today, right? So the leadership training is to really give leaders a good understanding of what are the challenges. And then the other thing that's important is resources and autonomy. So what? I know what the problems are, but I've got no resources and no autonomy to do anything about that, right? So we need to empower our leaders. The third step, of course, is targeted programs. I know the problem. I'm a leader. I'm empowered. I know how to fix this. So we put targeted programs in place that are accessible to working parents, that actually deal with their challenges. The next thing is what you were talking about, and that's that family-friendly workplace culture. Now, we are not talking about a tick box here. We are not talking about it's on my website. Look, we have a barbecue once a year. We give presents to the kids at Christmas it's not that. What it is a genuine organizational culture where the policies, procedures are not only in place, but they are being used. So in other words, I'm a working parent and I don't feel fearful to say I need flexibility today because my child has a parent-teacher interview and I'd really like to be there. My child's getting an award, and I need to be there. My child's sick today. I'd like to work from home so I can care for my child, but still work all day and make sure that they're okay. So where you don't feel like, oh no, that means I'm not going to get the next promotion. I'm going to get a bad performance review. So it's the genuine culture. And oftentimes that comes when leaders, managers say, I'm not coming in today because my child's sick. I'm
Mm.
working from home. Or has anybody, experienced what to do when your child's got this going on? I'd love your ideas around that, right? So, and you don't have to bare your soul, but just be genuine and family friendly. And the final one is measuring return on investment. We absolutely know organizations have a profit and a people goal, right? Profit, people, and hopefully broader community goal, right? So we want to measure outcomes. What are the benefits? What's the return on investment? And we want to make sure that prevention, which is this, is going to be much cheaper than cure when we lose those people, when we have people with mental health challenges, when we have productivity declines because we're not putting things in place. So anyone who wants that 5-point guide, there's lots of, guidance on what to do under each of those areas. It's a free guide. It's downloadable. No email address, nothing. You can just get it straight from the website. So I genuinely want to support, organizations to be family friendly.
I love the fact that you have highlighted the power of role modeling by leaders to the rest of the organization. Nothing is going to happen no matter how much you're going to invest in programs that allows parents to have the choice if they want, if you don't do it yourself. Because we always live by the fear. We are looking to the most powerful person in the company, we mime their behaviors. So as long as this person hasn't detached themselves from the old ways of doing things, nothing is going to change. That's a clear thing. Um, Thinking about the biggest bullshit that people say is, okay, I have got all of my results, I have done my data research, there was somebody to advise me, I have compared how we benchmark with other companies. But listen, it's not fair because there is people who doesn't have children, and we are not going to give more advantage to the people with families. So we are. It's not fair to do something about it. How do you answer to that? So that, and also how do we help this person also to make it that there is a little bit more of equity between the people who don't have children and people who have children?
I hear that all the time. I hear that all the time. And what the issue is the equality versus equity situation. What we want in an organization is that everybody thrives at work. We
Mm,
just don't want to be creating a situation where, like you said, what the choices we make disadvantages someone. So
mm,
if we're setting meetings at 9 in the morning or 3 in the afternoon, that disadvantages a family who needs to drop off at childcare or pick up, from school. So we're not saying, or that would disadvantage maybe a first year person out of school and doing study and also working. It may disadvantage them where they can't go and, get to the classes, the night classes on time. So,
mm.
what we need to do is we need to frame it around life stages and we need to frame it around psychosocial safety rather than your parental status. It's not about that. It's about that you are an employee of this organization. Now, there's a lot of accommodations that have to be made for lots of different groups of employees. You might say, for example, if there's stairs in this company and everybody, it's equal, everyone can access the stairs, they can have them if they want, they're all there, but a person in a wheelchair can't get up to the office. So we say, yes, it's equality, but it's not equity because that person can't get there, right? So what we need to say is, how can we create a workplace environment that focuses on allowing everyone, not just working parents, not just people with a physical or mental challenge, not just people who are just fresh out of school and just learning, not people who are close to retirement, right? But that all my workforce is being supported, and that flexibility is not just for working parents, it's great for other people. I want to go to an appointment, I want to go to school, I want to study, I want to go to a physiotherapy appointment, whatever it is that will help me be the best I can be in my own personal well-being, my family well-being, and therefore my workplace well-being. So it's very important from that point of view to say, no, it's not about saying, oh, we moved the meeting just to work for the working parents. No, we moved the meeting so that from a psychosocial point of view, we can make sure everybody can access that meeting. But I want to go bigger than that. I want to go bigger than that. There are going to be people in the world who are not going to want to have children. And so they're going to say, you know, it's not fair that there's parent programs, that there's flexibility or whatever. And what I say to them there is that our society depends on people having children. Now, you personally might not choose, or you might not be able. You maybe really, really want to, but you can't, right? Of course, that can happen too. But what we need to say as a society is we depend on working parents to nurture the next generation of humanity. And even if you don't have children, somebody raised the children who are your doctor, who is your baker, who is your builder. So if we can support parents and say, you know, nurture the next generation of society, it benefits everybody. We can't think small minded, oh, you know, this policy at work. No, we have to think as a society. We want healthy, happy, contributing society where everybody thrives. And if we don't support working parents, and this is what we've got at the moment, highest rates of mental health with our kids, you know, all sorts of challenges, obesity, social anxiety, bullying. Why? Because our working parents are struggling. If our working parents are struggling, our kids are struggling. If our kids are struggling, our society is struggling. So sorry if I've gone a bit too big, but I want to say it's not just a workplace issue, it's a societal issue. We need to change our mind about really supporting working parents. Thank you for contributing to society. Thank you for contributing to the economy. Not, I begrudge you having a, you know, flexibility because I can't have that, or I'm, you know, I'm having to take over your work while you're going off and doing this. So we need to change our mindset and, you know, be a more loving society as a whole to working parents. I believe that's how I see it.
I, I like this reframing, in fact. It's almost like it's giving a little bit of purpose behind why do we need to do something about these parents uh, who are also working. So I love that. Now I'm thinking of this stressed HR person who is listening to us and saying, yeah, I really want to do it, but then I have to present it to my finance director or to my CEO. And this guy only understands numbers and he doesn't care about this happiness at work. That is something that it has been invented by some people back in New Zealand. I know the jokes. Now, what type of KPIs do you think that it would be amazing for an HR to have as uh, to demonstrate that there is a problem and that there is a solution that is going to have a return on investment? But we don't want this fancy KPIs saying happiness or retention. Let's go beyond. Let's talk a little bit something that makes sense for the CFO.
So, one of the things that we absolutely know is if our employees are not managing, if they have mental health challenges, if they are exhausted and burnt out, that is so costly for the organization. And there are many studies around the world that have measured the cost of an individual burning out or a team burning out, or, you know, that sort of mental health challenges that come from unrealistic workloads, inappropriate, you know, workplaces that do not cater for employees to be their best. So just let's take one example, and so we can see it very clearly. Let's say, for example, we've got a tired, stressed out parent who got no flexibility and they drive a crane.
Mm,
What can
mm,
happen there? What about that same parent who's customer focused and yelled at the customer and we lost a big customer? What about if it's to do with a team leader who's now fighting with all of the team members and nobody's doing well? The cost of each one of those is so expensive to the organization, to the culture, to the productivity, to the bottom line when you lose a big customer, right? What about if the person's an accountant and makes a big mistake in invoicing,
mm,
right? So we can see, we absolutely know, no one's questioning this, that a well employee is a uh, productive and a employee that we're more likely to retain, right? So it's not about airy fairy happiness. It's about job satisfaction. It's about motivation. It's about effectiveness, productivity. So if we don't have that, we know it's really expensive and it can be actually dangerous, expensive, right? So putting these other programs into place and actually checking the psychosocial safety risks, making those little changes can actually save a lot of money.
mm.
So it's costly when employees have to go off on stress leave. It's cheap to give them a webinar and talk about work and family and give them resources and give them flexibility so that they don't go off. And
Mm.
then what happens when an employee leaves? Because it's just not family friendly. It's not a great place to work. So now that whole team has one less human in it. So what happens then? We're scrambling, we're taking over somebody else's job, we're needing to get a new person, we're recruiting them, we know how expensive it is to recruit. We've now got to get them in, we've got to train them. Oh, do they gel with the team? Maybe not. Yes, not sure. So can you see how prevention is like so much cheaper than cure? So, the return on investment of doing that data search, finding out what the challenges are, training up the leaders, making sure that you've got fair workloads, flexibility. You've got a place where people are thriving, not just surviving and then leaving. There's so many KPIs that you can measure down the track. So initially, not much because you're doing data analysis, you're getting the things in place. When you first start those programs, what you're looking for is things like how many people are engaging in the programs, live and recorded. What's the feedback? Like, are they saying, balancing work and family life strategies really helped me cope. The strategies for creating routines at home while managing a busy workload have been invaluable, right? So if you're getting that kind of feedback, so initially you look for engagement in the program, feedback on the program. But once you embed that, and that's why I say to organizations, you don't give one program on World Children's Day and one program, over the school holidays and then you're done, because the kids don't go away. The kids are there 24/7, 365 days a week for the
Oh,
next,
yeah.
short to maybe 25, 30 years, right? My
Mhm.
son said to me, he's 18 now, and he said, don't worry, Mum, I'm probably not going to leave to my mid-20s. So that's what a lot of people have got. So, but later on, once these programs are embedded, the leadership is there, the workloads are, you then have the harder numbers that you're looking at: less turnover, less sick days, less missing deadlines, more people turning up to the meetings when they're being scheduled appropriately, right? So we can measure the harder data down the track, but in the early days, we want the soft data. Are we doing well? Are these programs hitting the mark? Are our working parents feeling supported?
Mm. Rosina, I have the impression that from time to time there is a KPI that is very forgotten by companies because it's more difficult to measure. And during COVID times, we talked a lot about it, presenteeism, the fact that I'm showing up to work, I'm in front of my computer, but I'm not doing shit. I'm just
Yeah.
with my brain frozen. And that doesn't mean that I have a lot of workload. It's just that at the same time that I have to prepare my strategy review, I'm thinking that my child is sick at home, or that I have to drive my child to football just after 5:30. Otherwise, the child cannot be trained. And the funny thing is that this cost of absenteeism is even much more higher than the cost of sick days in companies. So there has been a couple of statistics showing like it could be 4 times more than the cost of sick leaves because of mental health or physical challenges. Is there a way to do that people considers it even more often? Because we are not talking about the simple moments where we drift away thinking about, oh, the movie that I'm going to have with my wife. No, it is continuous. And I went through this, and I know how many hours I was doing with my brain frozen in front of a PowerPoint that in the past I could do in 1 or 2 hours, and suddenly I have spent 8 hours doing one slide. So that means my productivity was close to zero. Is there a way to use more to encourage people to look at this passive passive data that there is inside of a company?
This is where having a family friendly workplace culture can make the difference, right? So, if you're a leader and you've got a team of people and you're having regular conversations, now, if I was your boss, I'm sure it would be lots of fun if I was your boss, right? And I noticed that the PowerPoint that I asked you last week is still not on my desk, right? Presenteeism, it happens to all of us, right?
Hmm?
This is when I say, listen, Ivan, can we just have a chat? Like, I just want to see what's going on. And if you come in and genuinely, and I say to you, I've been like that too. I'm supposed to hand this report to upper management. I'm struggling myself. I'd love to hear what's going on with you. Do we need to get you some coaching, some counseling? Do we need to get you some support? Do we need to have a few days off? Like, is that what we need to do right now? Because, like you said, if we are a present leader and if we've got capacity to be able to, you know, do something about it, offer the support that's needed, you are going to say to me, man, my boss is awesome. My manager really cares about me. And when we feel that and we have the right amount of support, we come good again, right? So as a leader, we need to know the signs, and that's where that training comes in. We
Hmm?
need to know the signs when our team aren't at their best, when they're not who they normally are, when they're snapping at each other, when someone's saying, I Ivan's not doing anything at the moment. I don't know what to do. I ask him for the email, I ask him for the email, I ask him for the email, and he's like, nothing, nothing, nothing. So this is where we have to have those hard conversations without being intrusive. It's not to say, okay, Ivan, tell me, you're not a psychologist. Go, Ivan, tell me, what's going on? It's not that, right? But it's being actually a manager. It's being an empathic, caring manager. It's being an empathic, caring team member and offering the resources and the support. Because if it goes unchecked, presenteeism can be mental health, can be, and eventually leaving the organization. So there's no easy way here, but definitely knowing the signs, having colleagues that can support you, having a really, one of the things we talk about with that family friendly workplace is actually community groups for different types of employees. So if you're new to the organization, you've got a little group. If you're, on the retirement, if you're a new parent, you are a parent of a teenager, and you've got these little groups where you might say, Yvonne might say, oh, I'm the only one. My kid doesn't sleep all the night. Everybody else's kids seem to sleep, but mine, no, I'm up every
Exactly.
hour. And then you talk to 3 other people and they go, oh no, same for me, but try this.
Hmm?
Or, I found this resource. And then you go, even if you still got the problem, you go, I'm not the only one. And others are getting through it. And I've got extra support. So it is a problem. It's not an easy one to define. It's not an easy one to solve, but it is through the human side of the social side, the human side, the empathic side, the communication side that we are going to find and overcome presentees and bring everybody back. Everyone wants to do well. We just have to create the environment for them to shine.
There is always this belief that if we need to change something, we need to spend a lot of money. And I'm thinking, and by the way, I love this idea of creating community. I haven't heard about it, but I think that makes sense. And if I want, I can join. If I am uh, a parent, if I have a specific type of challenges, that there is groups of people, and I mean, it's not mandatory to go, but if I feel like I need more support, yes, I should go. So I'm a big fan of experimentation. So let's say that the HR person who is listening to us is thinking about, yeah, I need to do something, experiment quickly something, but I don't have budget. So I'm pretty sure that there is a lot of things that we can do, a little bit like a community building, that doesn't cost nothing, and we can have proof data that is going to help us to back up asking for money to do something a little bit more structured. Uh, what would be your top three advices for this HR person who wants to do something now, experiment, have the data, and go with the case to the CFO so that he can finally understand?
So the best place to start is to actually gather the data, right? That I was talking about, and it's everywhere. Like if you just type into AI or a search engine, and you go cost of working parents burnout, versus proactive support, you'll be able to build a case very easily, and it doesn't cost a lot of money. You think about it. So if you're running a webinar, let's just say you do a webinar program. What we do with our programs are we build 12-month programs, 6 and 12-month programs. So it's a one webinar every month, live plus on demand. So you can just watch it whenever you need it. We make sure that they're structured around the biggest problems working parents have. Managing work and family. How do you create routines? How do you get the kids involved? How do you make sure that, you can talk to the manager about flexibility if you haven't got it, and your productivity. And through these, online programs plus resources, you start to build community. And this is what, you know, one person said, good to know other parents are facing the same challenges. It makes me feel less isolated. This has given me the confidence to speak with my manager about flexibility to better manage work and family. So, what you're doing is you're creating a platform, and it doesn't have to cost a lot because online means everybody can attend, resources where everybody can watch the replay, and it's accessible to the family as well. So, it doesn't have to be a one on one coaching program for every human being in the planet. We can do education sessions around the key topics that working parents are challenged. Because we come back every month, they're like, oh, my employer wants me to be supported all year, not on one day in the year. So I recommend getting the data from your employees, then presenting the case that losing them is going to cost a lot more than supporting them to stay and to be productive. And then finally, it's all about the education of the leader themselves, because when they feel informed they and empowered with their budget, they can make the most of the situation. So I do recommend that they get trained themselves. That I think it's not fair to ask someone to manage people, to understand other people's problems, if they haven't had the training to do that.
Hmm. Rosina, we are almost at the end of this amazing conversation who reminded me about the hard times. F- It is good that today my daughter is 16, so I went already through the phase where she was more needing me. Now, most of the time I work from home and she then doesn't need me. Rosina, how can people or this HR person who is asking themselves how to start can reach you out and ask you more questions, dig a little bit about the strategies? How can they reach you out?
So we've got lots of opportunities. We've got a blog that has our website is winwinparenting.com. So easy to find me, or find drrosina.com. And what we do is we have lots of free articles. We've got our free guide. We've got free manager training on the site. We've got all sorts of things, and you can book a free call with me as well, and we can work out what are your needs, what's your budget, and how can we support the people at your organization. Believe me, this really comes from my heart as a working parent myself, and believing that the more we support HR managers to support working parents, the more we support families and society. It's like, that's why I say it's a win for business, and it's a win for families, and it's a win for society. So just reach out. Our programs are available. We're here to help as much as we can. And it feels really good when you're a HR manager and you're getting this kind of feedback from employees who really appreciate that they are being cared for. And then they thrive, productivity, they stay, and they're loyal because of they're getting a family friendly workplace.
That is an amazing story. I hope that we are going to have the opportunity to that HR people gets to know a little bit more about the strategies that goes beyond the simple options or trainings. That doesn't help. That doesn't have impact. HR people wants to have to be empowered to have impact, results. People saying, now I love it. Good. Rosina, thank you very much for your time. It was lovely to speak to you.
I feel exactly the same. Thank you for your passion. Thank you for your. You meant I said you ask all the hard questions. I love it because you actually want to make a difference, and so I was so delighted to receive them. Thank you for all you're doing to help HR managers and managers be the best they can be. So thank you.
Thank you.